Sometimes emotional distance isn't coldness, it's protection. In today's world of modern dating, many people confuse emotional control with lack of interest, but psychology tells us a very different story. Some women appear emotionally distant not because they don't care, but because they have learned how to guard their emotions. This video explores the subtle psychological reasons behind emotional distance and what it often reveals about past experiences and emotional growth. One of the most common reasons emotional distance develops is emotional overload in the past. When someone has given too much of themselves before, emotionally, mentally, or even psychologically, they often learn to hold back. Not because they are incapable of love, but because they understand how deeply emotional attachment can affect them. Distance becomes a form of balance rather than avoidance. You may notice that emotionally distant women are very selective with who they open up to. They don't rush emotional conversations, and they don't reveal vulnerabilities too quickly. This selectiveness often comes from experience. When someone has learned that not everyone deserves full emotional access, they begin to value trust over speed. Emotional distance in this case is a filter, not a wall. Another subtle sign is how they handle attention. They don't seek constant validation, reassurance, or emotional reassurance from others. Compliments don't change their behavior, and silence doesn't make them anxious. This often signals emotional independence. When someone learns to regulate their own emotions, they stop depending on external reactions to feel secure. Emotionally distant women also tend to stay calm during emotional situations that would overwhelm others. Arguments, misunderstandings, or emotional tension don't immediately shake them. This doesn't mean they feel less. It means they have learned emotional regulation. Experience teaches people that emotional reactions don't always solve emotional problems. You may also notice that they value consistency more than intensity. Big emotional gestures don't impress them as much as steady behavior over time. This preference usually forms after someone has experienced emotional highs followed by deep disappointments. Over time, the nervous system learns to prefer peace over excitement. Another reason emotional distance appears is unhealed emotional fatigue. Even when someone has moved on mentally, the body remembers emotional exhaustion. This can make them cautious, slow, and reserved when building new emotional bonds. Emotional distance becomes a way to prevent repeating old emotional cycles. Emotionally distant women are often misunderstood as cold or uninterested, but in reality, they are often highly observant. They watch behavior closely before investing emotionally. They listen more than they speak. This awareness comes from learning that actions reveal more than words. It's also important to understand that emotional distance doesn't mean emotional unavailability. Many emotionally distant women are deeply loyal once trust is established. They simply don't give emotional access to everyone. When they do choose someone, they tend to be intentional rather than impulsive. Another key trait is their comfort with solitude. They don't fear being alone, and they don't rush relationships out of loneliness. This comfort usually develops after realizing that being alone is healthier than being emotionally drained in the wrong connection. Solitude becomes a place of restoration rather than emptiness. Over time, emotional distance can also reflect emotional maturity. Mature individuals understand that emotions don't need to be constantly expressed to be real. Love doesn't need to be loud to be deep. Sometimes calm presence speaks louder than constant emotional display. The most important thing to remember is that emotional distance is not always something to fix. Sometimes it's something to understand. It can signal growth, boundaries, self-awareness, and emotional intelligence. What matters is whether the distance comes from fear or from clarity. In relationships, the goal isn't to break someone's emotional distance, but to create a space where they feel safe enough to lower it naturally. Trust isn't demanded, it's earned. Emotional closeness happens when consistency meets patience. In the end, emotionally distant women are not broken, cold, or incapable of love. Often they are simply experienced, self-aware, and protective of their emotional well-being. Understanding this difference can change how you view relationships and how you build them.